Hi, I'm Jessie. I'm a cannabis nurse and the founder of MarijuanaMommy.com. You're watching Patients Are the Proof, where we discuss the real health benefits of medical marijuana. Today I'm chatting with my friend Meg Lewellyn. Meg suffers from multiple sclerosis and has found great relief with cannabis. She's a writer and blogger at BBH with MS. I want to try to take people through your journey. So I think maybe it'd be great if we started with a little bit about what multiple sclerosis is.
Sure. Okay, so I was diagnosed almost 12 years ago and knew nothing about it. Primarily, and I don't know a whole lot about the technology of it. I just know, as I explained it to my kids, it's kind of, and most of my lesions are in my spine, and that's unique. Most people with MS, it's in their brain. And because the spinal cord is so small and the brain is a little bit bigger, my lesions affect my physical well-being or my physical mobility a lot more than a lot of other people initially. It just was a boom, boom, boom. I went from running 6 to 8 miles a day to using a cane in my Segway to get anywhere. And that happened within probably 6 months to a year of being diagnosed.
Wow. It's a disease that attacks your nerves, basically.
Yep. And so what it does is your own body is actually attacking the myelin sheath, which is the protective coating on all of our nerves. And so I explained it to my kids as it's like having an electrical cord and you have the rubber wiring on the outside. If you put a slit in that and you had some of the cord sticking out, your light might go on and it might not. If it got rain in it, if it got moisture, then it's definitely not going to work. And that's, kind of the example I give my kids. And
that's a great way to explain it.
It really is.
It's so true. And once you damage those nerves, the nerves are responsible for everything in our body. So, MS, it can have so many different symptoms.
So it's honestly one of the most whacked things I could ever try to explain to people. And one of the unique things for my situation is that I love to write. I have a lot of words, and I have this innate need to try to explain to people, not because I want sympathy at all. I really, that's the part of this I don't like. I don't want even empathy, because it is what it is. And honest to God, my life is better right now than it was 12 years ago in many, many ways. And I still wake up, I'm in pain all the time, even with the cannabis.
There's no cure, right? There's no
cure.
There's just, there's some drugs that they think may possibly slow down the progression.
Yep. And those are called disease-modifying drugs, which is DMD, or disease-modifying therapies, which is DMT. And the idea is, and I was a good patient. I immediately went to the doctor and said, what's the protocol? What's the best thing for me? And honestly, what I was doing at the time was probably better for me than the route I decided, because as I said, I was running 6 to 8 miles a day. And so when I was diagnosed and I couldn't run because I didn't have the balance and the stability, I moved my workouts inside and I became a personal trainer, and I actually took on clients because I was thinking I can motivate people, if I have a disease and I can do this. And I was all about that. And I dealt with my, using the cane and the Segway, I dealt with it great for the first 4 or 5 years, but I also was in a very unhappy marriage, and the stress of that really, really, I felt very alone. And I felt like if I knew I was going to do this on my own, that's great, but I hated the always hoping that maybe, things would be different and that I would have support. And so I finally decided to, take off on my own and get a divorce. And what happened is I had to go back to work. And so when I went back to work full-time in an office, what had to give was my time in the gym. And the more I didn't work out, the more the pain began to hit. And so I had all the symptoms that I always had, but then add the pain to it, and I became dysfunctional. I could not. And my family, now that I'm on cannabis and I have relief from the pain and I'm back doing things, they're all looking at me like, Mom, the pain wasn't that bad. I'm really good at hiding things. I'm really, really good at hiding.
Chronic pain.
Yeah. You have to. I mean, and like, I don't mean that to say that if you have chronic pain and you're not good at hiding it or you can't, hold it in, that doesn't mean you're weaker or a less person. I am a person that pushes beyond my limits every single day. This is what I've always done. And so, in some ways, I'm a good person to have, a disease like MS. People say fatigue is one of the number one things. And I have my whole life, I've been called the Energizer Bunny. I am psychotic. No, I am. And I know that. And we joke that getting the disease is what brought me down to a level that like is normal. I still have more energy than my husband, who's, a couple years older than me, who comes home from work and is exhausted. And I've always had that energy. So it has, it's brought me down a little bit, but it's still, I just push through. And that's, what I do.
What kind of medications were you taking? So pre-cannabis, what were you?
So pre-cannabis, I went to the protocol of finding a disease modifying drug. And the theory there is they're very open and honest in saying they don't know, but studies have shown that those taking these disease modifying drugs slows the progression of the disease. And to be honest, I'm not even sure how they can say that, because it is so random what the disease does. I can be great for 6 months and not be on anything and then have a huge flare, or I could be on a disease modifying drug and have a huge flare. And here's the thing, they say, well, if you had that huge flare and you weren't on the disease modifying drug, what if you had been on our drug and it had, it had saved you from that horrible flare, which almost every time you have a flare, there's residuals. So you get more chronic symptoms that you're living with. And that's the biggest fear for me, is I don't really need to add to my arsenal of shit that I already have. Absolutely. So I'd like to avoid. And so when I was diagnosed, I was having a flare once. I mean, in good months, it was once every 3 months, but it was just one after the other. So I would begin to recuperate and recover from one, and I would be hit with another. And for me, again, I push and I push and push, but I also don't recognize flares until I'm really into them. I just think it's a bad day. And then I think it's another bad day. And then I think it's another bad day. And all of a sudden, like 3 weeks in.
Because I'm sure you do have bad days. So
yes.
There probably are some. This is just a bad day. So it's probably hard to.
Yeah. And so absolutely. And so I push, to the point where with a lot of people that are on the disease modifying drugs or having flare-ups, there's a protocol that you get steroids. And so you go and you have intravenously, you're given Solumedrol. And I think it's like 1,500 milligrams is what I was getting. And it's 3 days in a row. And then you go on a taper pack so that your body isn't going through shock of not having the steroids. And I have to say, I mean, if you look at my old social media, my old blogs, I loved my steroids, because when I was in a flare-up and I was really, really struggling because I had let it go so far, the steroids did the job. I mean, they were
massively relieve inflammation. Yes. I mean, the side effects are not great, but for that, they're fast acting.
Yeah, and for a needed moment in time, they were great. And again, I was having flare-ups every 3 months, so I was having steroids, every 2 to 3 months. And a lot of people say they hate the steroids because they put on weight, and a lot of that is water weight. I lose weight when I take my steroids, and part of it is I don't sleep, because the steroids, juice you up. And I always say I love when I have my steroids, because my house is cleaner than it's ever been, because I stay up all night, and like I have a routine. The first night I clean, because I don't usually clean a whole lot. The second night I move on to like laundry and things that's a little less physical. And the third night it's like I'm organizing like my buttons and my sewing shit. I have no energy yet, but I'm just sitting and I'm still awake because I can't sleep.
Funny, yeah.
And I mean, honestly, if I had a flare-up now, there's not a chance in hell that I would go and do steroids. I just think about it.
Were you also taking pain medications at the time?
Back with the steroids, not as much, because that was when I was still active, and the pain was only when I was working out. And so, I mean, and not to say I didn't have discomfort, but it wasn't just agonizing, all-consuming pain. And that, again, didn't come until I went back to work and I wasn't, working at the gym or working out every single day. But I was on a myriad of other medicines to kind of counteract the side effects that many of the disease modifying drugs have. And so I did an interferon, which is self-injecting yourself. And so I did Avonex for about a year, year and a half. And they had said the side effects may, you know, be similar to flu-like symptoms. And, you know, sure enough, the very first week I took, you know, gave myself a shot at like 6 o'clock on a Sunday night. By 9 o'clock, I was on the floor puking and sweating. And by 5 a.m., I was all cleaned up, got up, got my kids to school, went to the gym, came home and crashed for the whole day. So that was my, you know, first Avonex. That happened for a year and a half. Every Sunday night, I would lay prone on the bathroom floor for 8 or 9 hours. I would get up, I would go to the gym, you know, get my kids to school. And I would mention to my doctor, yeah, I have these side effects. And she's like, oh yeah, they happen. And, you know, I mean, like, okay, you know, it happens.
I know, it's hard. Like when you don't have another option, what do you do? It's,
yeah. And so
at what point did you discover
that it wasn't good? So I did that, and then, you know, MRI led to, I was still progressing, so in good faith, they couldn't leave me on that. So then I went on another, which is called Tysabri, which is you go in every 28 days and get an infusion. I was really psyched for this one, because this is kind of like, Avonex was like the older brother that they used to use, and now he's been, you know, replaced with Tysabri, but Tysabri was so much more expensive that insurance companies wanted you to try the Avonex, because like, if it works, yeah, why would we want to give you,
we pay all this money.
Why would we give you the stuff that really works if it costs more money?
First.
Exactly. So I did.
What side effects you have?
Yeah, and so I went in and I did the Tysabri, and the first, within, as I said, it's every 28 days. In that first 28 days, I noticed a difference. I was better. My fatigue was better. My walking was better. I mean, it was good. And second time around, I had a photography business at the time, and I was sitting in my hospital bed, working on my computer, developing a photo shoot I had done. So I was just not paying attention, and I just kept scratching my arms. And I finally looked, and my arm was covered in hives. And so they immediately stopped the infusion and gave me Benadryl. And then they put me back on, and I was fine. So the third time, again, 28 days later, I'm doing better. Went in, put the IV in. Actually, they gave me Benadryl and hydrocortisone intravenously for about an hour beforehand. So they pre-medicated me, knowing that I had had this, you know, allergic aversion. And 5 minutes into them putting the drug into me, I went into anaphylactic shock. And I mean, flatlined. I vomited all over myself. And my doctor was out of town. They tried to call my husband. They couldn't find him. I didn't hear from him until like 10 o'clock that night. And, you know, so they stopped it. I talked to another doctor. She set up an appointment for me to talk to my real doctor like a week later. They kept me there for like 6 hours observing me, and I went home, and I just was totally shaken up, because I was thinking like, I literally almost died, you know. I left there, and I went and picked up my 3 kids, my 5, 7, and 9-year-old. And, you know, they're like, hi, mommy, how was your day? And I'm just like, I can't keep doing this. And so I talked to my doctor, and honestly, my doctor at one point, she was so enthusiastic about the improvement that I showed. And I mean, she was about my age, and she wanted it to work for me. Like, she hated to see me struggling. And so there was even a conversation of like, maybe we keep you on this, but we do it in the hospital, knowing that if you flatline, we can revive you. Like, oh yeah, every 28 days, I'm just going to go down, and you guys bring me back. Okay?
Hope you come back.
Yeah. And I mean, like, honestly, I did think about it. Like, that's how scary it is that I put my body and my life in control of other people. I didn't even think about like how scary it was for me, or how much I didn't want to do it. If my doctor said to do it, then I believed, because I was raised in the 70s. I was raised in an, you know, a middle income East Coast family that like doctors were, you know, really, really, you know, regaled and knowledgeable, and we believe them and we trust them. And yeah. And I mean, like, you know, I had never been sick. I popped 3 babies out, and that was it. I mean, those are the only times I've ever been to the doctor. And so for me, it was like, well, geez, you know, you've always told me doctors are smart, so I better listen to them. And so I did. And like medicine and drugs and you know, and pharmaceutical companies, they must know what they're doing. Because I mean, like, other people have this disease, and this is horrible. But, and so I went off of that one. I tried 2 other ones. And the final one left me so constipated that I did not take a shit for 2 months. 2 months. 2 months.
Long time.
Talk about being full of shit. I mean, like,
literally.
No, I mean, my kids would start telling me, like, I just had pain. I mean, I was just uncomfortable, and I'd just be like, I'm full of shit.
Yeah.
Alone. I mean, it was just horrible. And like, so at one point, my doctor actually had me on doing suppositories twice a day for 30 days. Like, think about what that's doing to my body. I just, and yet, you know, I knew I wanted the shit out of me. I knew that wasn't healthy. And like, so you go to your doctor because you say, this isn't working, or this part is worse. Can you give me something? And all they're giving me is stuff that's making me worse. And at that point, I'm like, I am not anti-doctor. I am not angry at my doctor, you know, himself. I still go, it's just, I am mad at myself because I should have listened to myself. And in hindsight, you know, I actually have a lot of people who reach out to me now, recently diagnosed with MS. And I have one on Instagram right now, and her doctor is pushing to put her on a disease-modifying drug. And I sit here and I take it very seriously, because if I tell her not and she progresses, is that my fault? But I have to say, genuinely from my heart, going back in hindsight, I wish that cannabis and nutrition had been my first, you know, arsenal. That had been introduced.
Agree.
And if it didn't work, then 100% bring in the meds, but I feel like, you know, that I should have been told, you know, more emphatically that I should not stop exercising. I mean, I have people who reach out to me who are diagnosed, who are told by their doctors, don't work out, do not elevate your body temperature, it's bad for you. And I was told that by one doctor very early on, and I ignored it because I liked exercising too much, and that was the one place I decided to stick up for myself.
Ignore their doctors.
Yeah. And you know, and as I said, you know, my doctor in particular, I do still like him, and I think that, you know, he has the best of intentions and he wants to help people. I am just saying that now, experiencing what I have with cannabis and having found the relief that I have, and being as healthy as I am. I mean, I've lost 45 pounds. I walk, you know, 4 miles a day. I eat, like, I want to eat bad stuff. My body won't let me, you know, I will have a reaction. I will end up with diarrhea, or I will feel nauseous because I ate something that right now doesn't agree with my body. And as I said, I am not at all saying I am on XYZ diet or I follow this protocol, because I guess I'm making my own, you know, and like
that's
the last thing,
what works for you.
And I am not going to let go of my gummy bears if it kills me, because my gummy bears are the only, like, I don't want alcohol.
Throw away the gummy bears.
I don't want, well, and meanwhile, they're like, just make edible gummy bears. So I'm going to work on making edibles. So then I can just be
no artificial colors.
No, well, yeah, we're working on all of that. I mean, and you know, like, I'm the reluctant vegan is what my kids call me. Like, I don't think I'll ever give up fish. I honestly don't. So I'm not ever going to be vegan, but I am the reluctant, like, okay, fine, we're going to go buy organic. You know, it's like, I don't totally buy into it, but I am, because I'm seeing a difference in my body.
I totally buy into it, because I can recognize the difference. Like, I can totally recognize the difference.
Well, and I don't, you know, again, I don't know necessarily that I believe I have, you know, kids, and I would love to be able to afford to feed my kids organic. Okay, have you seen my boys? I mean, I'm not lying. They eat.
I know, they eat nonstop, right?
No, they eat 4 to 5 pounds of beef or of meat every meal, and so there's no way that I can. I mean, unless I become.
Your son, is it your two sons? Bodybuilders? Is that?
Yep. No, they're power lifters. Don't call them that.
Oh, not excuse me. So sorry. Power lifters.
Okay. Well, partly because I don't ever want to see my kids.
It's amazing what they do.
So I don't want to ever see my kids in Speedos. So let's hope that they stay away from the bodybuilding. So my 20-year-old, gotta make sure. Yes, he's 20. Started out with the powerlifting, and he got his younger brother, who's 4 years younger, into it. And my youngest is going to nationals next month, and will probably break all of the records for his age group.
Congratulations.
So he's 16. He's 6'2", and he's 270 pounds. And he just broke a personal record for deadlifting 600 pounds. I mean, it's big. Like, when I say it's big, I mean him. He's just larger than life. And he gets in my car, and like, I'm losing weight. Like, I was a tiny person. I was like 115, 120 pounds. And then I put on weight, you know, and I became just this puffy, disgusting thing because of all the drugs and everything. And so now I'm getting back to, but I just look at him and I'm like,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I'm just complaining.
I was going to go over to exactly what you were saying about losing weight. That's all happened recently, right?
Yep. So, you know, you asked me, what are the changes? This month, August, as of August, 2 years ago is when I went off of all of the drugs that I was on.
Yay.
And it was not, thank you. I was not intending to come off of everything. I intended to come off of the pain meds that I was on, which at that point was either amitriptyline or nortriptyline, which is weird because it's an antidepressive drug. And why are they giving it to you?
Pain also.
Yes. And so
it's very commonly used to treat nerve pain.
Yeah, and it's apparently very common to gain weight. And I put on 25 pounds in 8 weeks. Yeah, so it literally was like taking an air compressor and putting it in my mouth and just blowing me up because I literally exploded. And I didn't buy new clothes or anything. So I'm trying to fit my fat body in my tiny, which is, I should have gone out and just conceded and bought some, but I don't want to do that. But it was an instant and immediate thing. And I did laugh after, you know, I went back and saw my doctor after like 3 months and I had put all this weight on. And I mean, he's always seen me as this person that walks in, even if I'm in agony, I am put together. I look okay. And, you know, I always laugh because I can be at my worst. And yet I know that I've walked by somebody who's like, oh, I wish I was her. Like, and I'm just like, you stupid person, you don't wish you were me. You know, like I look like I have my shit together, but it's not, you know, it's not always that way. So I went in and I said to my doctor, I was like, you know, I am questioning this medicine because it says it's an antidepressant and yet it put 25 pounds on my body in 8 weeks. If I wasn't depressed, I am now. Like I might even be, you know, like, I mean, seriously, you cannot give this to somebody who is questionable.
It does. I mean, not even just from the psychological impact of that rapid weight gain, but even it throws off your chemical balance, and absolutely weight gain and, you know, that changes your brain chemistry and can absolutely cause depression.
Right. And so all of a sudden, you know, I was in pain and now I'm fat and I'm embarrassed to go out and I'm like, and it was horrible. And I keep looking at the month I went in. So July of 2 years ago, the pain was just off the charts. And I am so lucky to have somebody in my life that listens to me and cares, but also wants to take action. He wants to help. And so if I say the pain is bad, that's not enough. Then we're going to go and we're going to find something. And so we had gone to the doctor and, you know, he originally probably 4 years ago brought me to the doctor and made me tell the doctor that I use alcohol as a medication. And I was drinking every single day. And it wasn't, you know, he wasn't shaming me. It was because I had broken down and said, I think I have a drinking problem. And he was like, no, you have a pain problem. And how amazing that I have this person that just sees this in my life. And which it was totally true. And he's like, if I had your pain and I knew that a beer would take it down to a manageable, he's like, I would drink all day long, you know, and that doesn't help me, but it does to know that I have that support. And so we went in and that's how I ended up on the amitriptyline because it was a whole different, you know, family of medicines that they weren't looking at. And so that brought them, and that helped in the both the amitriptyline or whatever the hell it is, helped for a little bit, but your body develops, you know, gets used to it. And so you need more. And every time I would go back, right, when I was on methadone, you know, the 10 milligrams didn't work anymore and they wanted to give me more. And I didn't want more. I mean, I had a problem with the fact that I was taking, you know, 15 pills a day to begin with, because I'm not old. I'm not unhealthy, even in my mind. Like, even though I have MS, I don't view myself as a sick person. And so having all of these pills in my life was not, you know, really agreeable. And so the last conversation we had, and I told you this the other day, was I was either going to start Lyrica, which is a sister drug to gabapentin, which is something I have been on or was on. I think the day I was diagnosed.
And that is being used more and more often for pain issues, but it's also a nerve medication.
And I've learned that there are tests that show that it does compromise your brain's ability to create new synapses. So basically stops the elasticity and ability for your brain to expand and learn things. And so I now have to wonder, I always talk about the MS fog and my memory problems and my cognitive issues. And I am saying that my cognitive issues are improving with the cannabis. And I'm not sure if that's the cannabis or if that's because I'm not on the gabapentin anymore. You know, it could be both. It could be, so gabapentin, Lyrica is gabapentin on steroids. It's basically, you know, bigger, better, you know, bigger brother. And I went home with the decision I was either going to start Lyrica or I was going to come off of everything and try cannabis. And here's one distinction. It wasn't because I was at all concerned about mixing cannabis with any of the drugs that I was on. It was, if I tried something, like, I want to know if something is working. I don't want to know if it's working with X, Y, and Z. I want to know if it, and so I wanted to be off of everything else so I could say whether or not just cannabis could help me. You know, I didn't want to be, you know, still taking all of those drugs. And so I went off and I was probably drug free by October maybe. And then I didn't go until end of December. And it was because I was so insecure about going to a dispensary.
Interesting. And you live in a very legal area.
Very, very, yep. Both recreational and medical. I have 4 dispensaries within 2 miles of my house.
How was your doctor about cannabis? Were they?
So I had my medical marijuana card for about 5 years because it's been legal. And it wasn't my doctor who brought it up. I had a nurse practitioner that was visiting the office. She was so cute. She had a little leather doctor's bag. And she was just awesome. I gotta find her someday. I think she was in the medical cannabis industry for a period of time because she knew a lot about it. And she, you know, gave me my medical marijuana card and gave me the card of somebody that had a MMJ clinic that was really, really well known here in Seattle, and recommended that I contact him. And this was at the beginning of my pain. And I should have, you know, I should have grabbed onto that. But I remember I called the guy and he didn't have any availability, or he was I mean, it was like, it just didn't mix. It didn't happen. And then it just kind of went by the wayside as my doctors suggested other things for me to try. And I tried other disease modifying drugs and had more side effects and everything. So that kind of went by the wayside. And so when I brought it up to my doctor, when we were talking about the Lyrica, he was not at all opposed. And his answer was, yes, I have a lot of patients who do find relief. That was it. And but he also did say, but I know nothing about this. You know, this is something you will have to research yourself. And that's okay. And so, you know, for the first 6 months, as I said, I started out slow, and I think everybody should start out slow. I have learned that my body, my situation, whether it's an absorption issue or just, I don't know, I can consume large amounts, and it continues to help with the pain, and it continues to make me feel better. But I started out just like I would tell anybody, which is taking very, very small amounts. And the baby steps that I was taking, if I had continued, it would be about another 10 years before I would discover that I could consume as much as I can, because I literally was just taking tiny little puffs. And it wasn't until, as I said, I made some friends on the intraweb, and they came to my house and they taught me how to dab. And after dabbing all day, they were like, holy shit, you're like so put together. And I was like, is this how it's supposed to be? But I mean, that was a great experience for me, because it was, you know, I now have so much more of an understanding for the drug itself, but also I no longer have any of the fears that I had. You know, like, I think everybody, like, you can't overdose from it, but I also, being in a safe, you know, scenario where I was in my house with people I trusted, didn't really know them, so I'm not sure why I trusted them, but I did.
They seem trustworthy.
I'm still alive. That's what I say to Sean all the time when he's like, okay, whatever.
And you know how to dab now. So
I know. I'm so cool. And I have a bong. Yeah, my kids are loving all of this. But, and so it really, yeah, I mean, it really came down to, and I totally forgot what I was saying. We
were talking about consumption doses, and I think that's good to point out that, you know, it's so individualized. Some people only need a teeny tiny bit forever. Like, some people will just use a little bit at night, and then other people will use a lot all day, every day. Like, I use a lot. I think you probably use more than I do, probably just because you have better access. Like, I'm limited to 2 ounces of flour a month. It's ridiculous.
Right.
So, and we don't have concentrates here. So there's no dabbing in New Jersey yet.
It's funny because, like, Colorado, everybody dabs because they have all these rules about smoking. And I don't like dabbing.
No?
Yeah, no. It hurts my lungs. And again, I smoked cigarettes for 35 years. And so all of this, the smoking, I would like to try to get away from. I'm not, but here's the thing, as I said, like with food, I only don't eat food if it doesn't agree with me. And my body seems to be talking to me, and I'm listening to it a lot more. And for right now, the smoking doesn't bother me. Doing the bong hit, you know, like if I had a cigarette right now, it would just hurt my lungs. I mean, I have no desire to have one. And dabbing does a little, at a little bit, it brings that in. And so I don't know if I need to take smaller dabs. So that's one thing that we're working on. And I'm not going to say I don't like dabs or I won't do dabs, because I think that any way that I can get cannabis into my body is going to be beneficial. I just have to, you know, and it might just be that using the little like atomizer so that you can use a dab on it. That might be the extent. I may not need like a big giant dab rig. And
well, you make a really good point that it's so, again, individualized, and there's so many different consumption methods, and it's like important for people, because some people respond best to edibles, whereas other people respond best to flower. I do love and prefer flower, but dabs are just so easy, so quick.
See, and I don't find them so easy and quick. I find that with my bong now. I really, really am liking my bong. I was so anti-bong. I'm like, and here's the thing: every step of this way, this journey, has had me saying, "Don't worry, guys, I'll never do that to my kids." You know, like I'm like, "Don't worry, I'll never post an Instagram post blowing smoke at the camera," as I, you know, am now posting it, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm never gonna say never again."
You know, it's part of the progression.
Well, and yeah, I mean, then like, you know, I now have cannabis socks. I don't know if I can lift my leg up here, but like
I can't see that. Oh yeah, I see a little bit of a leaf. I love them.
Okay, so every day I go for my walk and I have my cannabis socks on now, and it was like, again, nothing ever happens intentionally. Like I wanted a pair of cannabis socks to wear to our wedding on the river. Like that was what I got for our wedding. And I ordered them online, and apparently I ordered a package of 12.
Wow.
So now I have 12 pairs of cannabis socks.
Everybody.
I have a lot of socks, so I wear them every day. And now my kids are like, "Mom." And I was like, I didn't mean to have cannabis socks every day. I just wanted one pair. But now that I have them, I mean, like
a uniform.
Well, I don't go shopping. Like I don't do well in stores because of my MS and everything. And like, I have always not been a big fan of online shopping, which I think is stupid, but we live in Seattle. I mean, I can order something from Amazon and have it here at my house in 2 hours. And like, my kids have done this with like a tube of toothpaste. And I have a problem with the energy that is wasted for the poor little guy that has to get in his car and drive and get me my toothpaste and bring it here. Like I have a problem with that. I mean,
I don't drive. I'm so dependent on delivery for everything. I'm like,
well, and I am becoming more. I mean, like Sean is like, "Why don't you do grocery delivery?" I mean, it's free here.
I can't believe you don't do grocery delivery.
So I love grocery shopping. It's something that I have always enjoyed. I know. I don't love it anymore because of the MS, but this has been, and so like for me, I am expending my energy going out fishing and going hiking and everything. And so, which is the energy that I was putting towards going grocery shopping 6 months ago. I mean, because it's equivalent, like that's how exhausted I get. And now I'm finding I don't want to go to the grocery store. I know that sounds stupid, but it's like, all of a sudden I'm like, all right, maybe I'll look into the delivery, because it's always been, I didn't want to do that because I felt like I was giving into the disease. Like that's another thing that it took away from me. Now I don't view it that way. It's just, I'm too busy doing other things. And so therefore it's fine if somebody needs to deliver my boy's food.
It's like what I want to spend my energy on. Like everything has an energy cost.
Yeah, no, it's like the spoon theory, you know, it's the same thing.
Oh,
but again, and for me, the biggest thing was, you know, yes, energy costs, like, and I would, when I was in pain and I would drive my kids to school, I would come home and I had my blog, and so at least I had something, but I would sit on the couch in front of a TV, and I would have my, you know, computer on, and I would answer people's questions or whatever, but I would just mindlessly watch TV all day long, thinking about and worrying about the entire time when it was going to be time to have to get back up off the couch and drive back to Seattle and pick up my kids and then go to the grocery store. And I would fret about this for hours, you know, because I knew that the grocery store. And so now it's like, screw it, I'm not going to the grocery store. But but I'm saying it because I'm now doing other things. If I was sitting on the couch and people were delivering,
walking every day, right?
I walk at least 3.5 every day, 3.5 miles.
Awesome.
I know. And I can't not do it. I mean, it's interesting. I skipped one day and my pain was off the charts.
Wow.
you know, the next day, the whole entire walk, I was like, why do I do that? I mean, it was just, everything was agony. It was like, this is why I have to do it every day. And it's one of the things that I've remembered from back before the pain, and I was really active with my MS. I can't stop moving, because that's when the pain comes. If I am moving, I am, you know, like, parts of my body hurt, but I am okay. The minute I sit down, and the other thing that's really, really annoying, when I sit still, like I'm sitting right now, I am 95% pain-free, because I'm not moving any part of my body. The minute I move, I'm in pain.
Yeah.
So when I was in pain and fat and sitting on the couch, not moving was the best thing, you know, I thought was the best thing. And so, like, the first few weeks when I finally got back to walking, I mean, I literally walked around the block 10 minutes and I was done. I mean, it was the pain was so agonizing that it just depletes all your energy. And so for me now, be able to get out and, like, I leave the house for at least 90 minutes every single day. I mean, my kids make fun of me because, like, every single day I pack up my little fanny pack. Like, I don't leave everything in it, because every day it's a little bit different. And I've explained that I'm much more forgiving of my body and the issues that I have, because I've decided that I look at it as I have an autistic child living in my brain. Because when my MS flares up and my pain and the MS fog and the blurry vision start, it is very similar in my mind to an autistic child who is experiencing symptom or what is it? Stimulation overload. Yeah, sensory overload. And that's literally, I mean, like, if the music's too loud, if somebody's got a chainsaw going, none of that ever bothered me in my life. And now it's just, I can feel my MS just begin to, like, tighten in the fog. And if I treat it like this autistic child, Artie, that I've created in my mind, then, you know, the things that I have, like when I'm walking and the pain gets really, really bad and I'm thinking, I can't do this anymore. If I just stop, because again, stopping the pain stops, and I take out a piece of gum and I start chewing the gum, like, that makes my mind think about that. I know it sounds stupid, but then I'm thinking about that, and I can walk another 4 or 5 blocks. And then the pain, and the pain gets really bad. And, like, if one of the dogs stops to take a shit on somebody's yard, you know, like, I have to stop and pick it up. That's a whole nother reset. And, like, and I always joke, like, and music, if the pain's bad, I can change what I'm listening to. And I do stupid things. Like, I go back to, like, stories that my kids used to listen to, like audio books on tape that I have on my iPod, and I'll listen to that, and it'll, like, make me remember my kids and them being little. And I'll tell Artie stories about, like, you know, when my kids, and it makes it so that I'm doing all the things that people always say you should do to try to help your MS. It's just, by viewing it not being mine, but this young child, it makes me so much more forgiving of the things, rather than just being like, damn it, this pain is there, I'm just going to keep walking. It's like, oh.
Yeah, it sounds like it enhances your self-love and your self-care. It's so important with all, you know, illnesses and diseases.
Yeah, chronic things. I mean, it is. I made edibles last weekend, and I used coconut oil, and again, we just talked about how much I consume, and I wanted to try to get away from smoking. And so I was like, okay, this weekend I'm going to do edibles. I'm going to use, you know, I'm not going to go to my bong, I'm not going to go to my, you know, dabbing. I'm going to try the edibles. Great idea, except that was so much coconut oil that I consumed that I ended up with, like, massive diarrhea, and I was not well all weekend. And I now associate the smell of the coconut infused oil with diarrhea. So I'm going to have to get through that part of it.
Try butter.
Yeah, exactly. But the part
not that much, maybe like a fully extracted concentrated oil might be better.
I know, an RSO or something. Yeah, no. We're working on it. But in the meantime, one of the things that I noticed is, I mean, I have been in such great spirits. I mean, like, I have not been down on myself. Oh shit, hold on. But really what it comes down to is, I keep forgetting what I'm saying. What was I saying?
You have, we were talking about the oil, and you were saying.
Oh, the diarrhea. Okay, so yeah, and I've been in this great mood, and I have so many things to look forward to, and it was immediate how quickly the self-loathing and negative hit on Saturday when I wasn't feeling well. Like, the minute that I was so, and Sean was out of town, and, you know, everybody, like, I had planned this to be a weekend that I had pretty much to myself so that I could do the garage, you know, clean the garage and do all these things. And yet I ended up just being so negative on myself. And it, you know, I was talking to Sean about it, and he's like, why is it the negative is so much more prominent than the positive? Like for all of us.
Hard days. Yeah. I find the same issues. Like when I have high pain level days, like I have so much self-pity and I like
but why?
lay in bed and feel sorry for myself, which isn't like me at all, but it's so much. I think, you know, my theory is that it takes so much energy just to get through a day when you have like chronic pain or chronic issue. And, you know, that positivity, it takes a lot out of us. So then when you're using it just to fight a higher level of pain, there's nothing left, you know?
Yeah, and that's very, very true. It's just, and I like that I was aware of the negative place I was in. You know, it didn't help me get out of it. I needed, you know, to do other things, and I went for a walk, and that helped, and all of that.
That's so important that you don't wallow in it. That's the biggest thing for too long.
Well, and I mean, everybody deserves a moment to be frustrated, angry, you know, whatever it is. It's just, you know, and people always ask, you know, how is it that I'm so positive? And like, the alternative is to be negative all the time. And I was married to somebody who lives that life, is just a negative person. And that is not me. And that's not what I want. You know, I want, if I'm going to be shitting my pants and peeing my pants, I want to have fun doing it. I like
peeing your pants is actually a good thing to talk about, because I know that's often common by bladder spasms, often caused by bladder spasms, which is very, very common with MS.
Yep.
And cannabis is so, I know I have tons of spasms in my neck. It's amazing for mine. Like, do you find it helpful? Like,
I do. Somebody asked me if it helps me with incontinence or, you know, peeing pants. And I here's how I describe it is when I go out for my walk and I go for 90 minutes, like I know exactly how much, like I am very, very careful about how much water I consume before I go, because I know I'm going to have to pee. And where I am walking right now in a, you know, planned community where there is no construction going on, there's no porta potties, the houses are like right next to each other, so there's no like side alley where I could squat.
Believe me,
I have thought about it. I mean, like, and I peed my pants. I mean, like, and I have shit my pants. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, and it's like, even if I decided, okay, abort, I'm going to go home, I am still 45 minutes from home. Like this, I'm peeing. Like it's not a question of like, and the thing with MS is I don't have there is no preconceived notion of, oh, I need to pee. I always say, like, when you're on the road and you check with your kids, you guys got to need to pee. And they're like, no. 20 minutes later, you ask them, you know, and then all of a sudden somebody 10 minutes later, it's like, oh my God, I got to pee. I get none of that. I get, oh my God, I have to pee. And the minute it hits my brain, it's happening. So there's no real chance.
It's really just your bladder suddenly like just spasming and like.
Right. I'm peeing.
There's no control. Yeah.
Right. And so like my kids and Sean have gotten used to like me saying, oh, I gotta pee, pretty much means I'm peeing. Like, I mean, like, just so you know, like, that's just, I mean, maybe I should change it to, okay, I'm peeing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, I joke when I talk about my kids were really little when I was diagnosed, and I always had that issue, and I was always out and about with my kids at their school and doing errands and whatnot. And my kids, I had a Euro van that had a big sliding door, and my kids got in this routine that if we pulled up like at a grocery store where I knew there was no way I was going to get physically into the bathroom, we had like a case of water, bottled water, and a big like caftan and a towel right inside the door. And we would park, and my kids would jump out, and they would take the towel, and one would hold one on one end and the other, so it was like a little cabana, and one would stand outside and pour water so that as I stood inside peeing, nobody would hear the pee. They would think it was the water. This was something they did on a regular basis.
Wow.
Without ever even questioning, what are we doing? Why are we doing? I mean, it was just what they did. And then I'd pull my pants up and we would go about our way. And it's like, but it was like,
I went to the friend's house and was like, oh, where's your blanket for your mom?
Where's your pee stuff? But I mean, like, I had a choice. I could say, I don't want to go out because I don't want to pee. You know, like, I mean, a lot of people do. I am also somebody who've always been very comfortable with my body and nature, and like, that doesn't bother me. Honestly, I think I would do it in front of people without the blanket if society didn't yell at me. I have to pee.
Like, and you should. And I love that attitude, and I wish more people had it. I mean, not, you know, without.
We don't need to pee everywhere.
But like when Same
accept
thing
it.
with, you know, I think the same thing of like people who have, you know, with gastrointestinal issues. There's such a stigma surrounding it that makes that disability so much harder to live with. And it's a shame.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's our society, it's, you know, it's our uncomfortableness with our own bodies, it's all of those things. And I just have to laugh because I said, when I had my kids, you know, I was the one, when I had my first, his labor was 48 hours. And, you know, I was in a hospital that had, you know, student teachers and everything. And I had my doctor come in and say, would you mind if we had a couple? And I'm like, no. But because it was that long, they like all called their friends. I had 17 people in my delivery room watching live as I shot a baby out my vagina. And I had no problem with it. None. I mean, and I'm like, and it was not a pretty labor. I mean, it was all the things that we know happen with labor. And yet that doesn't faze me. And so for me, as I said, I think if somebody has to end up with a disease where you do pee your pants in public, I'm a good candidate. It just happens, you know, and I've finally managed to put myself in a scenario surrounded by people, you know, my children, my husband, the friends that I have, that no, they just, you know, like it's, and I know I go and TMI way too often in public. Like last night when we were getting our phone and I was joking, like I was contemplating between getting the plus screen and like the normal one because my vision always has problems. And like Sean made a really good point, which is, you know, getting a bigger screen isn't going to make my vision any better. And I have just as much problem looking at the computer screen as I do, you know, the phone. So getting a bigger screen isn't going to do anything. And so we're just joking about it. And I was like, I said something and the poor guy, sales guy is just like looking at it all embarrassed. And I was like, I need the world to know I have MS, not because I want anybody's sympathy, but because I want them to understand that whatever happens from here on out may not be my fault. You know, it may be the disease.
Yeah.
And once you tell people that, then all of a sudden people are like so much more understanding. Like when you say you have to go to the bathroom, instead of it being like, I'm sorry, we don't have a bathroom, they're like, oh, it's right over there.
Yes.
Like if you tell them, you know, like I'm prone to peeing my pants, when you ask for a bathroom, they'll find one. You know,
well, you know, your advocacy is so admirable. Your advocacy for MS. You talk about it a lot on your blog, which is BBH with MS.
And BBH is boobs, boots, and hair. And that was when I first met Sean, my husband, and we were dating. And, you know, I don't take a lot of time to get ready or anything, but I would come out and I'd be like, do I look okay? And he's like, BBH looks good, boobs, boots, and hair, because I always had all three. And so BBH became this kind of, he called me BBH as like an affectionate term. And so when I started my blog, I didn't know what to name it. And I have, in subsequent years, I mean, I have, at this point, I think I have like 13,000 followers, which is great. And I love the idea that maybe some of them will begin to listen to me about this whole cannabis thing, because, you know, I feel like they've been there for the journey. They know that I am very honest, that I talk about things like peeing my pants and whatnot, and that I'm not, you know, going to say this if it's not helping. And so, you know, that's my hope, is that, you know, people will begin. And I've thought about changing the name, because BBH doesn't mean anything to anybody, but I love the name because it was such a, you know, a funny whim. And it's because I now all these people know BBH, but they don't know what it stands for. And when they hear, they're like, oh,
that's so funny. They're like, did you say boobs?
No, we don't talk about boobs.
That's hilarious.
No boobs, no boob.
I think this is a great place to finish up. I love chatting with you. I adore you. And let's see.
Well, I'm hoping, as I said,
tell everybody where they can find you, besides BBH with MS is your blog.
Yep, bbhwithms.com is my blog. And I have Instagram, which is BBH with MS. Oops, my phone is going off. And I do actively post much more to my Instagram right now, just because I mentioned sitting in front of my computer. I'm very popular right now. Telling my kids, like, Mom, I need food. Or my boys aren't here. They're probably like, Mom, do you have food? We need to come home. We're going to dance for a day. Yeah, we need food. So I post more actively to my Instagram right now because I am having, I've mentioned I wear these lovely glasses. The screen is giving me headaches and whatnot. You know, I don't know if that's MS. I know other people get it, but so I post to my Instagram, which is BBH. And then if you find those two, I have Twitter and I have Pinterest. I have all sorts of, I don't even know what I have. But
well, I'll link to your blog and your Insta.
Yeah. And I mean, I want to, you know, once you post this, I'm definitely going to write about, you know, this. And I still say, I know I'm coming east in 10 days and I'm not going to be able to come see you, but I have full intentions of coming and meeting you and a bunch of the other people that I've gotten to know. Well, because we all talk and but like meeting people is like literally what I live for. And so I just decided, you know, I have all these people with MS all over the country that I have known for years that like really consider me a friend, and never in my life, you know, would I have ever thought like, oh yeah, I'm going to come visit you, Dean. And I'm like, why not?
Why not? You're going to be on the East Coast. I don't think you're too far. Let's really definitely talk about doing that.
Yeah, no, I'm dead serious. And I am very, very serious the more I think about it, of this cannabis camp, you know, like the idea, as I said, the idea that somebody came to my house and showed me how to dab, like every step of the way, the growing, the, you know, cooking with it, the exercise, like I definitely take really, really heavy hits of indica, which is what I use for my activities before I do yoga and stuff, because it makes me feel my muscles and my body. And so doing all of that, like, and opening something like, because people like you should come see the Pacific Northwest. And so if you had a place that you knew was cannabis safe,
I'll be there. Start it.
I mean, if you could come and experience the Pacific Northwest, go, you know, we could take you out fishing on our boat. We could take hiking. Like, I keep thinking that it would help people to be able to come and just be around a bunch of other people that use cannabis and accept it and don't have to hide it. And even if you have to go home to your state where it isn't legal, to know that you were around all these people that know the value of the medical, you know, medicinal part of it, really gives yourself power. I mean, believing in it makes it more powerful.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I love it. And
I'm hoping
definitely move forward with that.
Yeah. So as I said, big things are hopefully, you know, my kids laugh at me. They're like, Mom, you're never going to do anything with this, but I'm going to try.
Do it.
I know. I like right now, I have more Instagram followers than them. And again, you have to remember with the boys doing powerlifting. I mean, like, I found out something really weird. My now 16, because he just had a birthday, but my 15-year-old boy has fan clubs. Little 14, 15-year-old power lifters. There are fan clubs for my son. Like I had no idea. And so, but I joke that I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make people listen to me before they get famous. We'll see.
Do it. Hurry up.
Yeah.
I know.
I know. I'm gonna go on vacation, and when I come home, I'm gonna be all about traveling all over the world and telling people about cannabis. Yep.
I love it.
So,
well, I love you so much, and I appreciate you. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for talking to me today.
Thanks for redoing this. I really appreciate it.
Love you.
Have a good day.
You
Take
too.
care. Bye.